Flight Lieutenant William Terence Decker, a British pilot fighting in 1917, is engaged in a fierce dogfight over France alongside his squadron mate, Alexander Mackay. When Mackay comes under heavy attack, Decker panics. Overwhelmed by fear and convinced he cannot help, he turns his biplane upward and flees the battle. Climbing into a strange, dense white cloud, expecting to emerge safely above the fighting, he instead finds himself flying over a modern airfield he does not recognize. Confused and disoriented, he lands on what turns out to be a U.S. Air Force base in 1959, where American personnel rush out in disbelief at the sight of a World War I biplane and a pilot dressed in 1917 gear. Decker is taken into custody and questioned by Major Wilson and Captain Ritchie, who suspect he is either a spy or mentally unstable. Decker insists that it's still 1917 and he's just come from a battle with a German aircraft. The Americans show him proof that it is, in fact, 1959, and Decker becomes increasingly distressed. His panic deepens when the officers reveal that Mackay survived the dogfight and went on to become a decorated hero in World War II. Decker is stunned because he knows Mackay should have died. He abandoned him. The contradiction forces him to confront an impossible truth. If Mackay lived, then Decker must have gone back to save him. That realization leads him to understand that he was somehow brought forward in time specifically to learn this, so he could return and fulfill the history that already exists. During the interviewing, Decker takes out his money, his wallet, his ID, and leaves them on the desk, along with his watch. They put it in a bag and put it in the desk. Driven by this revelation, Decker begs the Americans to let him return to his plane, but they refuse. Determined, he overpowers a guard, escapes custody, and races across the airfield. He climbs into his biplane and takes off despite attempts to stop him. As he ascends, he finds the same mysterious cloud and disappears into it, returning to 1917 to face the battle he once fled. Moments after Decker vanishes, a visiting British officer arrives at the base, Air Marshal Alexander Mackay. When the Americans mention Decker, Mackay is stunned, but confirms that Decker did return to the dogfight decades earlier, saved his life, and died a hero in the process. The Americans realize they have witnessed a time loop completing itself. Decker fled, was transported to the future, learned Mackay lived, gained the knowledge he lacked, returned to the past, saved Mackay, and died, enabling Mackay to live long enough to confirm the story in 1959, including when the generals pull out the bag of Decker's materials, show it to him, and he's shocked because he doesn't know how he could have gotten them. The loop closes perfectly, and Decker's redemption becomes the very thing that ensures history unfolds as it always has. Kenneth Haigh was born in 1931 and passed away in 2018. He was one of Britain's most accomplished stage actors and respected performer in film and television. Best known for creating the role of Jimmy Porter in the groundbreaking play Look Back in Anger, and for his memorable appearance in the Twilight Zone's Last Flight, Haigh built a career distinguished by intelligence, emotional depth, and an ability to portray complex, yet often conflicted characters. Born in the mining town of Mexborough, Yorkshire, England, Haigh grew up in a working-class family. His father was a coal miner, and the hardships of his upbringing gave him an understanding of the frustrations and ambitions of ordinary people, and that later informed many of his performances. Showing an early interest in acting, he earned admission to the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama in London, where he received classical theatrical training. His breakthrough came in 1956 when he was cast as Jimmy Porter in the original London production of Look Back in Anger by playwright John Osborne. The play became one of the most influential works in post-war British theatre, giving voice to a generation of young people dissatisfied with Britain's rigid class system and social conventions. His explosive, emotionally charged portrayal of Porter established him as one of the leading actors of the emerging angry young men movement. Although Richard Burton portrayed Jimmy Porter in the 1959 film adaptation, many critics believe Haig's original stage performance was even more powerful. Throughout the late 1950s and 1960s, he became one of British most most busiest dramatic actors. He appeared in numerous productions for the stage while also building an impressive resume in film. His versatility allowed him to move easily between historical epics, Shakespearean drama, literary adaptations, and contemporary stories. Among his best known films was Brutus in the lavish 1963 historical biopic Cleopatra, starring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. He's portrayed Napoleon Bonaparte in Eagle in a Cage, 1972, depicted the exiled emperor during his imprisonment on St. Helena. Other notable films include Weekend at Dunkirk, The Pumpkin Eater, Robin and Marian, and a brief uncredited appearance in A Hard Day's Night, featuring the Beatles. American television audiences remember him most for his appearance in The Last Flight. He also appeared to enjoy a successful television career in Britain. He starred as ambitious businessman Joe Lambton in the television adaptation of Man at the Top, based on the popular novels by John Brain. He also portrayed famed explorer Richard Francis Burton in The Search for the Nile, earning praise for bringing intelligence and determination to the complex historical figure. Unlike many actors of his generation, he never limited himself to one type of role. He was equally convincing as a military officer, Shakespearean hero, historical leader, and ordinary working class man struggling against life's disappointments. Directors frequently praised his professionalism, while critics admired his ability to convey emotional intensity without exaggeration. Away from acting, he lived a relatively private life. In 1987, he published his autobiography, A Sparrowhawk, in which he reflected candidly on his career, personal relationships, and the changing world of British theatre. His later years were marked by tragedy. In 2003, he suffered a severe brain damage after choking on food at a restaurant, causing his brain to be deprived of oxygen. The incident effectively ended his acting career, and he spent his remaining years in a nursing care. Kenneth Haigh died in London on February 4th, 2018, at the age of 86. Although he never achieved the worldwide fame of some of his contemporaries, he earned lasting respect as one of Britain's finest dramatic actors. His unforgettable creation of Jimmy Porter helped revolutionize modern British theatre, while his memorable film and television performances continue to introduce new audiences to his remarkable talent. His career stands as a testament to discipline, craftsmanship, emotional honesty, and a lifelong commitment to the dramatic arts. Alexander Scourby, born November 13, 1913, passed away February 22, 1985, was an American actor, stage performer, and narrator whose rich, resonant bass voice made him one of the most recognizable voices in broadcasting. Although he appeared in dozens of films, television programs, and Broadway productions, he's best remembered for his acclaimed audio recordings of the King James Bible, which has remained a standard for generations of listeners. Born in Brooklyn, New York, Scourby was the son of Greek immigrants. His father, Antonio, was a successful merchant, and his mother, Helen, encouraged his education and appreciation of literature. Scourby attended the Polytechnic Preparatory Country Day School and later studied at Columbia University. While in college, he became interested in acting and public speaking, discovering that his exceptional, deep, expressive voice was one of his greatest assets. Scourby began acting professionally in the 1930s, first on the New York stage and soon afterward on radio. During radio's golden age, his commanding voice made him a favorite for dramatic programs, documentaries, and commercial advertisements. He appeared in numerous radio dramas and was frequently cast as authoritative figures, narrators, judges, military officers, and historical characters. His Broadway career flourished during the 40s and 50s. He earned praise for his performances in Shakespearean productions as well as contemporary dramas, becoming known for his polished diction, commanding stage presence, and intellectual approach to his roles. Although he never considered a conventional leading man, he became one of America's most respected character actors. Scourby transitioned easily into film, appearing in such motion pictures as The Big Heat in 1953, directed by Fritz Lang, Giant, starring Rock Hudson, Elizabeth Taylor, and James Dean, The Great Caruso, The Helen Morgan Story, and The Big Fishman in 1959. His distinguished appearance and authoritative voice often led to roles as judges, politicians, doctors, military officers, and religious leaders. Television provided him with many memorable opportunities. During the 50s and 60s, he appeared on numerous anthology series, westerns, and dramas, including Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Untouchables, Ben Casey, Perry Mason, Outer Limits, and of course, The Twilight Zone. During his many achievements, Scourby's greatest legacy is his narration. In the late 1940s and again in the 50s, he recorded the entire King James Version of the Bible, becoming the first person to record the complete text on long-playing records. His warm, expressive reading was praised for its clarity, reverence, and dramatic sensitivity. The recording has sold millions of copies in various formats and is still widely regarded as one of the finest audio versions of the Bible ever produced. Many listeners continue to associate Scourby's voice with the scripture itself. Beyond the Bible, Scourby narrated hundreds of educational films, documentaries, historical recordings, and commercial projects. His voice became a trusted presence in classrooms, churches, museums, and television documentaries, earning him a reputation as one of the premier narrators of the 20th century. Alexander Scourby remained active throughout his career until shortly before his death. He died of a heart attack on February 22, 1985, at his home in Fairfield, Connecticut, at the age of 71. Today, Alexander Scourby is remembered not only as a gifted actor, but as also one of America's great voice actors. Whether appearing on stage, in film, on television, or through his timeless Bible recordings, he brought intelligence, dignity, and unmistakable vocal authority to every performance. His work continues to be appreciated by classic film enthusiasts, television audiences, and millions who have been inspired by his unforgettable narration of the scriptures. Filmed at Norton Air Force Base, San Bernardino, California, playing the role of Lafayette Air Base, Reims, France. There was a Reims Air Base in France in 1959, the year this episode was set. Now known as Aérodrome de Reims-Champagne, Norton Air Force Base was decommissioned and closed in 1994. The site is now San Bernardino International Airport. Writer Richard Matheson explained that the title of this episode and its short story referred to both the protagonist's physical journey as well as his departure from cowardice. This was the first episode of The Twilight Zone scripted by Richard Matheson. Rod Serling had previously adapted the episodes And When the Sky Was Opened and Third from the Sun from short stories of Matheson's. Decker looks out the window of the general's office to see a 1959 jet aircraft pass on the airfield. However, other shots in the same office window show the window overlooking a parking lot with palm trees and cars. After punching and knocking out Major Wilson, Wilson's cap is lying on the table next to the door. Lieutenant Decker decks the sentry, then escapes. Recovering from the attack, Wilson grabs his cap, which is now in the center of the table. When Decker first gets out of his plane, Major Wilson begins to question him. Decker's hair is neatly combed. When Wilson asks him, "Are you French?" the shot changes to a close-up of Decker. His hair is now disheveled in the front and hangs down over his forehead. The next shot returns to the wider angle, and Decker's hair is more neatly combed again, as it originally was, not hanging on his forehead. The Major is wearing his hat indoors. Members of the U.S. military do not wear hats indoors and must wear them outdoors. At the end of the story, the British officer is introduced with the rank of Air Vice Marshal, but clearly has the single wide rank band of an RAF Air Commodore, not the single wide band plus the narrower band above it to denote AVM. Decker speaks of George Guynemer's disappearance. For Decker, the date is March 5th, 1917, but Guynemer disappeared on September 11th, 1917. The Last Flight uses time travel not as a scientific puzzle, but as a moral crucible, placing its protagonist, Flight Lieutenant William Terence Decker, in a situation where he must confront the truth about himself. At its heart, the episode is a meditation on courage, redemption, and inescapable pull of destiny. Through Decker's journey from cowardice to heroism, the story argues that the identity is not fixed by a past failure, but forged in the moment a person chooses to act with integrity. The man who believed himself incapable of bravery is forced to reckon with a world where he must have been brave because of the evidence of Mackay's life, proving it. The paradox introduces the episode's second major theme. Destiny is a closed loop. Decker's journey is a predestination paradox in which the future depends on the past, and the past depends on the future. He not only becomes a hero because he learns he has already won, he already was one. The episode suggests that destiny is not an external force imposed on a person, but a path that becomes clear only when one is willing to face the truth. Decker's time jump is not an accident. It's the mechanism through which he discovers the courage he always lacked. The loop is not a trap, but a gift, a chance to become the man he failed to be. Yet the episode doesn't treat destiny as an absolute. Instead, it emphasizes redemption through choice. When Decker realizes that Mackay's survival depends on him, he's not compelled by fate, he's compelled by conscience. His decision to return to 1917 is an act of moral clarity. He understands that he cannot undo his initial cowardice, but he can choose differently now. The episode argues that redemption is not earned by erasing the past, but by confronting it and acting with integrity in the present. Decker's final flight is not a correction of history, it is history, completed only when he embraces the courage he once lacked. Another theme woven into the episode is the ripple effect of a single life. Mackay's survival leads to thousands of lives saved in World War II. Decker's choice to return to the past enables that entire chain of events. The episode suggests that individual actions, even those made in fear of shame, can have profound consequences across time. Decker's transformation from coward to hero becomes the hinge upon which countless futures depend. In this way, the story elevates personal responsibility to a cosmic scale. One man's courage shapes the fate of nations. Finally, the last flight explores the identity that identity is defined by action, not perception. Decker begins the episode believing he's a coward, and the Americans initially see him as delusional. But by the end, both he and the audience understand that identity is not determined by fear, but by the moment one chooses to rise above it. Decker becomes the man history remembers, not because he was destined to be a hero, but because he chose to be one when it mattered most. In the end, The Last Flight is a story about the possibility of transformation. It argues that even those who have failed themselves can find redemption through courage, that destiny is shaped by choice, and that the past is not a prison, but a place where one can return to set things right. Through its elegant time loop and emotionally resonant character arc, the episode delivers one of the Twilight Zone's most enduring messages. A person becomes a hero not by being fearless, but by refusing to run away from who they must become. In setting up the review of this episode, I went back to check a few things and ended up rewatching the entire episode. Not because I was looking for things, but because I found that this episode is so well made. There are many layers to the story with brilliant writing and terrific acting and directing throughout. If there weren't so many lapses in technical setups, I'd give this 5 out of 5 stars. But because I only noticed the continuity issues because I wrote about them, I was going to give it a 4 out of 5. Then I rethought it and realized that I hadn't even noticed them until I found them by looking really close at what was going on in the backgrounds. So I've changed my mind again. I can forgive the continuity issues, and I am giving this 5 out of 5. This is a must see episode, one of the best episodes of the entire series, not just the season.